The little girl's voice cut through the crowded store like a blade. Her words, trembling yet steady, silenced the hum of idle chatter. "Sir, I promise to pay when I grow up. Please, can I just have the milk?" Every head turned. Some with pity, some with annoyance, and a few with the casual indifference of those too used to suffering to let it disturb their routine. At the counter, towering above the small figure, stood a man of wealth, known in the city as a ruthless millionaire, whose sharp suits matched his reputation for sharper business dealings. His eyes narrowed, assessing the child in front of him, as if she were not human, but some riddle to be solved. The girl's hands clutched the carton against her chest, thin arms trembling under its weight. Her shoes were worn, one lace missing, and her dress had been patched too many times to still carry the dignity of fabric. The cashier waited awkwardly, frozen between the protocols of the store and the morality that pressed heavy in the room. No one spoke, no one moved, but in that silence hearts raced. The weight of the moment hung heavier than the air itself. Would the man dismiss her? Would he laugh? Would he let the cruel machinery of money deny a child the simplest kindness of milk? What none in that store could have known was that this moment would unravel stories far deeper than the girl's hunger, far older than her innocence. And the man she had chosen to beg from was not merely a figure of wealth, but a man whose heart was bound by memories he had spent years burying. The girl's name was Amara. She was no stranger to hunger. For days her mother had tried to stretch scraps into meals, but illness had hollowed her strength, and her wages as a laundress had vanished under hospital bills. Amara had watched her younger brother cry himself to sleep with thirst. She had seen her mother faint from weakness, and so she had taken courage into her hands and walked into this store, determined to trade her word, the only currency left to her, for a carton of milk. Her voice cracked again, softer this time, nearly swallowed by the silence. "I'll be good for it. I'll grow up strong and pay you back." The millionaire's lips tightened, but his mind was not on the child before him. In the trembling of her hands, in the naked honesty of her plea, something deep stirred, a memory. He had once stood in another store, ragged, starving, making the same desperate promises. A boy no older than 8, clutching bread in hands too small to steal, but too hungry not to try. He remembered the shame, the sting of being turned away, and the ache of emptiness that had driven him not toward kindness, but toward conquest. He had vowed then never to be powerless again, and he had kept that vow at a cost. The onlookers began to shift, whispers rising. Some muttered about irresponsibility, others urged generosity, but the man remained still, his silence speaking louder than their noise. The girl's eyes were wide, fixed on his face, searching for mercy. Inside him warred two selves, the boy who had been broken and the man who had built himself unbreakable. He reached slowly into his pocket. Gasps rippled through the crowd as he pulled out not money but his phone. He tapped a number, his face unreadable, his movements deliberate. The tension sharpened, each second stretching into eternity. Was he calling security? Would he have the girl removed, her dignity scattered across the floor like her hope? Amara's knuckles whitened around the milk. She would not let go, not even if they dragged her out. She had made a promise to her brother she would keep it. But instead of cold command, his voice, when it finally broke the silence, carried a weight that was not cruel, but devastatingly calm. "Bring the truck," he said, "now." The store held its breath. Amara blinked confused, still clutching her prize. The cashier frowned uncertain. Only the man's eyes revealed the truth. He was not refusing her. He was preparing something far greater. Within minutes, a black vehicle rolled up outside. From it, men in uniforms emerged, hauling crate after crate of supplies, not just milk but bread, rice, fruit, and medicines. The aisles filled with the smell of abundance, of provision so overwhelming that it silenced every doubt. The girl's arms dropped, the carton nearly slipping from her grasp. She looked up at the man, her lips parting in disbelief. "Why? Why would you?" He did not let her finish. His voice was low, almost lost in the weight of the moment. "Because once I was you." The words struck like thunder, In them was no pride, no performance, only truth. The onlookers felt their hearts shift, shame flooding those who had judged, awe silencing those who had doubted. Amara's tears came not from sorrow, but from the overwhelming relief of a burden lifted. She clutched the man's sleeve, not in gratitude, but in something deeper, recognition. A child's faith that promises could still be honored in a world that had so often broken them. The man turned to the crowd, his voice rising now, not with arrogance, but with authority born of lived suffering. Never mock the hunger of a child, for in their hunger lies the seed of tomorrow's strength. The world tried to deny me once, and it made me who I am. Do not repeat that cruelty. The silence that followed was heavy, reverent. Shoppers lowered their heads, some in shame, others in respect. Amara's promise, whispered in innocence, had opened a door in him that decades of wealth could not close. He realized then that the payment she spoke of was not in coins, not in bills, but in the legacy of compassion she would carry forward. He knelt to her level, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. Your debt is not milk, child. Your debt is to grow, to learn, to give as you've been given. Dindil, that is how you will repay me. Her eyes widened, and in them bloomed a light too bright to be contained. For the first time in days, she believed in tomorrow. Behind them, the crowd shifted into something greater than witnesses. One by one, people came forward, laying groceries at her feet, offering help to her mother, pledging support. What had begun as a moment of shame had turned into a movement of compassion, and the millionaire, once hardened by scars of the past, felt those scars soften. He had not lost his strength. He had redefined it. That night, Amara carried not just milk home, but crates of provision her family had never dreamed of. Her mother wept, not just for the food, but for the dignity restored. And the man returned to his vast house, where for the first time in years, silence did not echo loneliness, but peace. The story traveled. It whispered through neighborhoods, surged through streets, and spread across networks until strangers across the world spoke of the girl who had promised to pay, and the man who had shown her that true wealth is measured not in possession, but in mercy. And though many would remember the crates of food, or the millionaire's reputation redeemed, the truest legacy was simpler. It was in Amara's whispered words to her little brother that night as she poured him a glass of milk. I told you, I promised. Her promise had been kept, not by the coins she never had, but by the compassion that now defined her path. And for the man who once vowed never to be powerless again, a new vow was born. Never to let another child bear the hunger he had known. In the end, power was not in wealth, nor in reputation, but in silent dignity, in the strength to remember pain and transform it into hope. And so, when the world remembers this story, they do not remember a millionaire who gave or a girl who begged. They remember a promise, fragile, innocent, and yet strong enough to move mountains. A promise that changed everything.